Good evening, everyone. So, we are back again with our Instagram live series called Ascent, which we bring to you every Thursday, 9 pm. And today is a very special episode because we bring our flagship product. I hope we are audible. Hi, Himalaya. Hello, everyone. So, we bring a special episode, and in case of questions, feel free to ask. We'll have. Hi, Vidit. Good to see you. Join us tomorrow morning. Hello, Pravata Rohi. So, guys, we are on a special series called Ascent. We bring to you every Thursday at 9 pm, and we talk about mountaineering. Not many people talk about that, but then that's not what we do. So, it's going to be good fun. Hi, Randy. Hi, Nazir. Hi, Ashok. So, today we have very special guest called Astha, and Astha is going to be leading our yoga expedition. Hi, Astha. So, you're not supposed to wave, you're supposed to join. So, the thing is that we'll be speaking more about Everest Base Camp and yoga because that is one component which we'll be trying and exploring because not many people would dare to do that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll request everyone to have lots of questions because that's what makes it great. Hi, Shashi. Hi, Dhruv. Hi, Live Athlete Life. Good. Hi, Dhruv. Right. So, hi, Anu ma'am. So, next week we have Anu ma'am. Yes, that reminds me. Hi, Gaurav. Hi, Munna. So, we'll have lots of topics today to discuss, focusing around EBC and the yoga. Why should somebody be doing yoga at those altitudes? Very different set of questions. Hi, Hiranya. So, it's going to be very exciting stuff. Hi, Arun. Hi, Sushil sir. Good evening, everyone. So, it's going to be a lot of interesting things coming up. Stay tuned. And, as we always encourage people to ask questions, that also keeps us motivated, and it's good fun if there's a response coming from your side. Oh, Asta is already.
Right. So, more about Asa will be covered by herself, because she would be able to explain better why she does what she does. Hi, Asa, welcome. Good evening.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hello, sir. Thanks for having me here. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, all audible, everything loud and clear. Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Right. So, by the time I set my camera, I'll ask you to introduce yourself because if you do it, that will be better. Over to
Okay.
you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Astha, and I teach yoga to individuals. I teach yoga in organizations, and I work with yoga in different ways. I try to see how we can, integrate the fundamentals or principles of yoga across different disciplines. It could be high altitude hiking, or it could be competitive sports. It could be workplaces. It could be high Savika. It could be all kinds of environments. And I fundamentally believe that regular, consistent classical yoga practice can do wonders to whatever you do. And I try to get people to try that so that they can enhance what they're doing. So that's what I do.
Right.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
tell me, how there's so many things which are related to yoga these days. Every other person talking about yoga. We read newspapers, magazines. It's more of a, if I may say, it looks like a fad. Everybody speaking, talking, every ID you see on Instagram. So what exactly is yoga in your terms? How is it different from, like running or that kind of a thing?
What exactly is yoga? That's a very good question, sir. I'll tell you what, first I'll tell you what the books say. Okay, there are these classical books called Yoga Sutras. They were written some 2000, 3000 years ago. They have a certain definition of yoga, and I just did my course, and that definition is still fresh, so I'm going to flaunt it. Yoga is the definition is yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. What that means is through the practice of yoga, which means through asanas and pranayamas, very important that people skip sometimes. Through these two things, you're trying to restrain the thought waves of your mind. Okay, what that means is right now you and I are doing this live, we have thousand thoughts going on in our mind. Okay, how's the lighting, how's this, that, and at any given point of time we have thousands of thoughts, right? Through yoga or through this practice, we are trying to bring down from 1000 to first 800 and 600 and less and less and less. Okay, when you do that, you automatically feel more happy and peaceful. That leads you to feel like you have control over your mind, you have control over
Okay.
your body, you have control over your life. So on a like a very fundamental level, that's the definition of yoga: restraining the thought waves, reducing the number of thought waves in your mind.
Right. So, these are the kind of things you hear from people who talk about meditation and all. So how do you say, how is it different from meditation and, between yoga and meditation? What's the difference there?
So it's the same thing essentially. The within yoga there are 8 stages, and meditation is the 8th stage. So meditation is a part of yoga
Okay.
actually. Okay, and if I have to put it in a manner that I think some of the people watching us would like more, let's put it this way: you're a climber and you're in the middle of some great climb. You're in the middle of
Nice.
some vertical rock, and you're looking up and you're trying to find the next hold or the next boulder that you want to grab. Right at that time, there's only one thought: that what is that boulder, how do I catch it, when do I release my left foot, right? And that's what makes it exciting, right? You're smiling because you like that feeling. You like being there, and that's the feeling that's addictive. Actually, that feeling is nothing. That feeling is all other thoughts of our mind have gone away. We have that one single thought of which boulder, and that makes us happy. That makes the feeling addictive. For example, people keep saying that, for me, driving is like meditation, or singing is like meditation,
Right.
or golf is like meditation. It's all the same thing. Whenever your mind has restrained the number of thoughts, thinking one thing, you're thinking with focus, you feel happy and peaceful. You feel that's why people who come out of yoga classes, they say, I feel decluttered, I feel centered. All these words come up. So that is the objective of yoga. Byproducts are plenty, like all of your flexibility, range of motion, disease curing, face is glowing, all that happens on the side. But that's not the objective, and that's not the core of what it is.
Great. Very nicely explained, I must say. So tell me that, for the viewers who are joined us late, we would like to tell them today we're going to speak about specifically about yoga during the Everest Base Camp trek, because frankly speaking, we were not very sure that we would be able to get a response like this, the kind of response we have got. And I still remember the first time we interacted with Asta from Boots and Crampons, that, if something can be done on that. Over to you, Asta. How was that experience for you? Because did you ever think we would do something like this?
No, it's quite unreal actually. So, I mean, I think how it happened was that I was at, like, for people to watch, you obviously know because it happened with you, but for people to know, I was at this course in Nehru Institute of Mountaineering, and Sirs and his company had organized this course. And I like to walk up to people all the time and say, I teach yoga, can I do something for you? But he was one of the few people who said, yes, you can, and let's bring something together. Let's bring yoga at treks and see how that works out. And I think the next 2 months were just designing and seeing what will work. And then we
Right.
put it out, and then we got a decent response. Let's see how the response of the actual trek is. Pata chale hum वापस आए and people don't want to see us or talk to us. That's what matters. But I think so far things have been great, and I feel quite confident about what will happen.
No, no, absolutely. In fact, in Boots and Crampons also, we try and do something which is, not the normal stream of things which are happening. And that's why the plan like this, yoga and Everest Base Camp Trek and the WhatsApp group which we have, regarding this. I'm, super thrilled to have the kind of people we have, because these are the people who want to try something new rather
Yeah.
than, going with the things. But only constraint being that, you should have that many number of days to spend, because not everybody gets 19 days of leave from office, that kind of stuff. So if somebody has that kind of affordability as regards time is concerned, then I think that's fine. So coming on to this, why 19 days? Why did you plan it that way, that you should have CBC for 19 days?
It's so one is that some people like to finish quickly. Like you want to go on this trek, and these many days you want to finish it. That's one mindset, and that's great and applauded. But there is a different mindset where you want to soak in where you're going, the area, the environment, the people, how you feel with it. So that's one reason. Some people like to take it a little bit slow. And if we want to integrate a discipline like yoga, we need time for it. It can't be superficial. It can't be that, okay, in the morning, we do some quick stretching and now we go for our trek. We didn't want it to be superficial. If we're calling it high alt yoga, we wanted to make sure that people who come out of that experience, they feel that they have a solid grounding of what classical yoga is and how breathing for their trekking works. They understand these things. It's not superficial. So for that, we had to increase the duration. You know this better than I do, but thank you for smiling and nodding. It's just
No, that's great. The another thing is, these days there are a lot of yoga which comes in the form of acro yoga, this yoga, that yoga. So tell me, and we hear that you've just done that course from Shivananda Yoga. How is it different from something like what we say as Hatha Yoga or something? So tell us something about that. And before you start, I'll request the viewers, in case any questions are there, feel free to ask. We are open to the questions anytime.
So, excellent question. What is this style of yoga, right? There's only one style of yoga. All you people watching, please understand there's one style of yoga, and that's the original classical style that the books have, and that the Yoga Sutras have written about. And they have certain techniques, and we are trying to teach the same. Now, that is called Hatha Yoga. So, yoga is equal to Hatha Yoga is equal to classical yoga. Okay, that's all that there is. After some years, a lot of people came in with different adaptations. So if someone wanted to work on strength and flexibility more, something like Ashtanga yoga got developed, which is a different training style and it's taught more in Mysore and things like that. Over time, someone who wanted to work more on breathing and breath work, Iyengar yoga came up. So these are all contemporary adaptations. But what dates back to 3,000 years is the classical form, also called Hatha Yoga. And when I say Shivananda Yoga, Shivananda is a school that teaches that classical form by the books, right? Without changing anything. They teach what is classical. And when I say high alt yoga over here, it doesn't mean it's some new routine. I've invented nothing. The idea is to take some of those classical practices up on that altitude and see how they benefit you. Take the ones that we'll need up there. So that is a bit of the styles of yoga. There is bear and goat yoga and all that also, but that's okay. All that is rubbish. So now there are all kinds of things coming up, but there's only one real style, which is Hatha Yoga, which people should know.
Right. So you've clarified that we are not going to have any bear yoga there. We're going to have only one style of yoga, right? Correct. That is Hatha Yoga.
Yes.
Okay. And, a lot of people, they have this doubt that if somebody has to do yoga or learn yoga, why don't you do it in, some place like Delhi? Why do you need to go all the way to high altitude and do it? So what is the rationale behind all this?
This is going to take a little bit of time, but this is a very important question. So just cut me if I'm talking too much. Okay, you just
go ahead.
Do the signal and I know. Okay, but okay. It's not about doing yoga at an altitude. That's not the point. Okay, the point is not that you'll reach somewhere and then you'll do one fancy pose and click a picture and come back. That's not what we're looking at. Okay, we're looking at seeing how the two disciplines of classical yoga and trekking can complement each other, and they do that phenomenally. For example, let's say people who are watching and who are trekkers. Let's say you have a trek coming up 3 months from now and you want to prep. Right? What will you think of? You'll think I need strength in my legs. I need to be able to walk enough, so I need some stamina. So, okay, there's a question from Sadhika. So you enough stamina you need, and you will look at cardio and strength as your major training places, training workouts, and you will prep and you will go. Right, sir? That's what we really do.
Absolutely.
Despite doing this, we have all kinds of issues happening up on those altitudes. Right? All kinds of mental, like acute mountain sickness, HACO, all this comes in. Why? If you're prepping, why is that happening? Right, so these are two things to look at. First is the breathing. We neglect breathing completely, and that's the most important. When you go to a high altitude, the most fundamental difference is that the oxygen in the air reduces, or let's say the percentage of oxygen that's going in and with every inhalation is going down, and your lungs need to be good enough to be able to control the breath, to be able to have enough capacity to push out pollutants, and for that you need healthy, efficient lungs, right? And the way to build that is through certain breathing techniques, which in yoga we call pranayamas. Like there was a reason that all these ancient yogis, they could walk all kinds of distances at all kinds of altitudes and nothing would happen because they had control over the breath. If we
Right.
look at like a more contemporary example, like Wim Hof, Wim Hof is now so famous. He's this Dutch athlete for people who don't know, and
Right.
he's done all kinds of peaks in record time, maybe one third the time. And he said this: the difference between success and failure for me has been my control over the breath. So now this Wim Hof breathing technique has become very famous. What is it's Kapalbhati, what we do in yoga, right?
Okay.
So you need to train. It's not about doing yoga only there. You need to train. So the people who are going with us, they're going to be doing a month and a half of strict pranayamas, train their lungs, build that habit to be efficient when they're up at altitude. So that's only one of the components. So should I get into the second component, or is it too
Yeah,
long?
yeah. We would, not just me, the team would might like to know, what all activities, what all yoga things we could do apart from the way you said, breathing is one. What else
Yeah.
would be as part of the curriculum?
So curriculum, I'll tell you, like one is breathing is a big focus area. The other
Right.
focus area is that like why yoga helps is most of the issues that come up on that altitude are because our internal environment is disturbed, right? When I say internal environment, I mean fluid levels, acidic levels, atmosphere pressure levels, oxygen levels, temperature levels, hormone
Right.
levels. Some of these things are up and down, and that's why we fall sick. How many times have you seen someone think ki mere legs are not strong enough, and then this emergency happened? No,
Right.
things are okay. So this internal environment is mostly regulated by your endocrine system, right? Your hormones, which regulate how to keep things in balance, and that's
Right.
one of the major focus areas for in within yoga as well. Every pose is designed in a way that you put the right kind of pressure on your hormones or on your glands to secrete the right hormones at the right time. You do the shoulder stand, which is Sarvangasana, and you're putting the right pressure here in the thyroid region. That is secreting the right kind of hormone to go through the body and maintain metabolism or temperature, whatever pressure levels, oxygen levels. So that's how your internal environment stays in check. So that's also when yoga enters the picture, and we just neglect, we get our six packs, and then we think that, we go to a high altitude and we'll be good. That's the reason really fit people also have issues up there, because fitness has to be internal also. It can't just be with your, biceps and things like that. So that's the reason. Two major reasons would be, I would say, endocrine and breathing, where yoga come into the picture.
Okay, great. Very nicely explained, I must say, because many times people ask this is that, I do 10K in 45 minutes or 38 minutes. How would my body behave once I go to the altitude? So I think anybody who's listening to this would understand, how different it is once you go to an altitude. Now tell me, when basic question, if you do so much of yoga, when do you trek? It's at the end of the day, you're going for a ABC trek. How do you squeeze in the trek in between?
So, is this question from the deep portion of your heart, or is it from the viewers? I want to know
No,
that
no,
first.
that's basically I can judge the people who are listening that, they'll have this kind of a doubt that are we going to EBC trek or are we going to a yoga class? So how do you, time slot the thing, schedule it that
Yeah.
way so that you can do adequate amount of yoga and trek
So,
as well?
I think we've had enough discussions about this, and this is what we feel. So, one is the reason we're looking at yoga on this trek, and I said it's not superficial, right? So, it's not about doing isolated yoga sessions. Like, it's not that we're going to go up there and morning may stretch for 20 minutes, evening may stretch for this much, and we are done. That's not the objective.
Right,
The idea is to see ki, okay, these are these breathing techniques that are useful. This is how I get control over the breath when I'm walking. This is
right,
you integrate certain fundamentals through the entire 19-day journey. There will be standalone sessions also. On days which we have more time, we'll have a nice high alt yoga routine for like an hour also, and people will
right,
like it. So I think, but the idea is you integrate it in the very habit of trekking. Whether it's when you take those breaks, which stretches to do, which are very important. Otherwise, we'll do one trek and second trek, but if we've not done repair and restoration work properly, not done the right kind of stretching, third trek, fourth trek, you say, Array, back in my 20s, I was like not so careful with my body movement. Why do you want to get into that situation? You learn
right.
how to do the right breathing and right stretching at a good time, and then you're sorted even later on.
Nice. So with this, I come to the next question, which says, if I'm doing the yoga session for 3 days, 4 days, do you think it's going to benefit me on the fifth day and sixth day? Then by the time I reach the 19th day, I'll be a superhuman. Is it going to be, increasing that way, or how does it happen?
That's exactly what it's going to be. No, it's not that. See, first of all, the people who are going with us on this trek, right? They're going to be doing yoga before the trek. It's not like the first time they do yoga is up there. Like I said,
Correct.
this is not an Instagram photo of a pose on, right? You train. And for any kind of tangible results to be seen, I think it takes at least 3 weeks. So we're going to be training, we are training, in fact, beforehand also. And on the trek, yes, whether it's circulation of oxygen, circulation of blood, right kind of stretching, these things, of course, they make a difference. Your state of mind
Okay.
also to some extent. You relax and calm the mind in different ways. So these things help on the trek, but ऐसा नहीं है कि like you will do yoga on the first day and then by second day you will be like this. That's not how it works. These things take a little bit of time, and we'll invest that time beforehand as training and for future treks, right? Then if you get into a habit and you feel the difference, ideally it's something that you keep going as a practice.
Absolutely. A habit is one thing which we all understand that, consistency, if we keep doing the things, you improve. And that's why we saw the difference, once we were there for, let's say, the Nag Hammadi trek, or once PNC did that, and during the NIM course as well, we had, small things, and the response was pretty nice. And that's how we as we say, tested the waters and realized that, we should go ahead. So that being said, once I was with the team in 2019, the moment we used to reach any destination or any, place, the first thing used to be, everybody together having that ginger, lemon, honey tea, whatever. So that bonding, the kind of time we spend, and you have, a lot of people from different countries, because we have scheduled it in a manner that a lot of people who are climbing Everest will be in that region then. So the concern is that, how do you manage time between your personal time, your bonding with friends, and yoga? Because I would say, I don't want to do it. I want to be with my friends, or I want to relax. How do you manage that time then?
That's a good question, sir. I mean, see, we have 19 days together, right? 19 days with the same faces. We're gonna get sick of them, to be honest, at some point or the other. But the thing is, through those 19 days, you're walking and trekking so much, you get enough time to bond and chill, right? When you understand that there is value in a certain thing, and you understand
Right.
why you want to do it, you prioritize and you make time for it. I think that's how we'll run our lives, right? We pick our battles and we see this is something of value. So people who signed up, they feel that okay, yoga is something that will enhance my experience, and you allot certain time to it. It's not like we're doing 2 hours of yoga every day, not at all. There's some time in the beginning, sometime during the trek, sometime in the evening, just to ensure that um, you're learning something new, you're being able to use this experience well. And then it's not mandate. Okay, is it not mandatory? I don't know. That you figure out.
No,
That
that we'll
having
have to do.
See, for you it's mandatory, but for most of the people on the trek, I think nothing is mandatory, of course. And especially in yoga, there are no like rules and you have to and not have to, none of that, right? Never. But having said that, I think when someone makes a resolve for at the beginning of the trek that okay, yeah, this is good. I think I want to do yoga in my 19 days, and this is why I want to do it, right? And if you tell me that hey, I think I'm interested in this, then I'm going to push you to make it happen, because 10th day, 11th day, you are going to feel like I just want to go to my tent, and that's the
Right.
time you work on your willpower. You push yourself a bit, and that's how you experience new things, right? What is this lazy attitude of Mujhe nahi karna? you,
Right. No. Other thing also, I can, tell the viewers, you can ignore the last 2-3 minutes because it's mandatory. If the team leader is there from army, you don't have any options. We'll make sure that if you have come signed up for this EBC trek along with yoga, so you might as well do yoga. You don't have any other options. So that goes without saying. Some
so
people, they are, yeah,
no, man,
go ahead.
I'm just thinking the participants are going to be so confused because we have these two completely different types of like philosophies coming in, where I'm like nothing is mandatory, you do what you want, and then you have this army background coming in. So I think people are going to be quite like, but I think
No,
we'll
no.
mix it
Yeah, they
well.
would know that who's the team leader. So they've got to listen. Okay. Now tell me, a lot of people have this question that, sir, do we get a certificate out of it, and can we use that certificate later on? That they have done yoga at the Everest Base Camp, that kind of stuff. So can they use it subsequently?
Yes, I mean, of course, they'll be recognized for completing a high altitude yoga course. And if they submit to Kalapathar, which is the ABC summit, then they will recognize that through a certificate from the company. And yeah, they'll be able to use it. Yes.
Great. And other thing is that there are a lot of people who already would be into yoga for 2 years, 3 years. So what is there for them apart from obviously the Everest Base Camp trek as such is there. So how is it beneficial for them?
I think it's a way to learn, like to learn certain tools and techniques. It could be to do with breathing or stretching or how your body functions and works, which could help you with multiple other like high endurance activities, sports, treks, and in life in general. So you're kind of walking away with a solid understanding of yoga while being on a 19-day trek. So that's one value add. And generally also, sir, I think there are so many, like across the world, you see Olympic champions and all kind of governing bodies doing trainings at high altitudes, right? There's a reason for that. There is a certain alag level of training that happens when you're exposed to those conditions. So you're challenging yourself a little bit more, and
True.
that is
No, I agree completely. Being a runner, I know a lot of my friends who have been all the way to Kenya then for training at higher altitude. And in fact, in our teams also, the army team goes to higher altitudes and trains for the increasing the aerobic capacity and all for, being a better long distance runner. So that's why I think yoga also being done at those altitudes would surely benefit the people who are joining us. Right? So that makes sense. So next is that in your case you've been doing treks, you've been doing yoga. So which one was first? I mean, you started doing treks first or yoga came first for you?
So I think I started trekking in first year of college, which was 2017. So that's when I went on my first trek, and I started working with a few companies that are into this outdoor field. And on my first trek itself, I remember one day I'd woken up really early, and I came out of my tent and I saw this person doing Surya Namaskars at like 4:30 in the morning somewhere. And I was like, this person I need to speak to. So he was actually the campus chief, and he taught me my first few Surya Namaskars, Ashtanga
Okay.
style. And I just practiced that, and then he taught me more. Krishna, his name is. He runs a company called Somarasa. People who are looking should check it out. He's doing amazing work. And so yeah, he taught me some basics. I practiced them, and I think over the next few years, I got into it more deeply. So in a way, they both came together, trekking and yoga, kind of at the same time.
Absolutely. No, in fact, we were also surprised because, frankly, our army team, we were not into yoga and all once we were doing in 2019. And there were a lot of foreigners who were there practicing yoga at EBC. There were other team members, they were also doing. And then there was a thought, somewhere in our mind that did we miss out on something we could have done? Because, Everest, nobody wants to take any chances. The way Umesh is training with you for the yoga for his climb, So that's why, that's how I think matters. No, point is everybody says or knows that yoga originated from India, but then we realize that we are learning it again from the people from, foreign countries that yoga importance and all. Why is it so? Why did we lose and where did we lose the hold on yoga as such?
Mm, yeah, I think generally, I think the Western world has a way to, market and commodify everything a little bit better. So that is one reason. But I think generally speaking, so yoga, nowadays, like I see there are a lot of connotations, like people look at yoga as a flexibility thing, or they look at it as one more exercise. Like I ask my friends, are you into yoga? And like, no, I'm into football, or like I'm into something else, or I go to the gym, right? So or they look at it as like this is something just like for women, or only like vegan hippies do yoga, or there are all these silly misconceptions that people have. Like this is only spiritual stuff for gurus and babas, and it's not my age to do yoga. And there are all these things which kind of come as barriers from people
Right.
taking up something as beautiful as yoga. Essentially, it's a science or a tool to get control over your body and mind, right? And when you understand that, why would you not want to do it? Right? When you feel that whatever your mind sets out to achieve, you can use your mind and body to achieve that. And you can use your physical and mental faculties better to achieve that. That is what yoga really is about. And if people understand that simply, then yes, Sushil is written because yoga is not marketed in India that well. It's a little bit of the Western and Eastern philosophy, right? Eastern philosophy is not about selling and proving that this will work for you, right? They are a little bit of the mindset that let the seekers come and they will take what they need, as opposed to I'll shove it down your throat and tell you this is good for you. And I think the Western world does that pretty well. They will make the right posters and they'll have these yoga pants and yoga mats, and then people get excited. So that's the fundamental difference. And I don't know if I'll really change anything about that so much. It's okay. It takes like
I'm sure it's going to make a difference if we are able to do it the way we are planning to do it, because Everest Base Camp, there are a lot of people from all over the country who are present there, right? So it's going to make a lot of difference to the people who are going to be there, and seeing Indians again coming back doing it on the Everest Base Camp, because as far as we are concerned, we didn't see any organized classes being conducted during the Everest Base Camp trek once we did in 2019. Right. So, for the people who have joined late, I want to just take a pause, Asta. So, this is the Ascent series which we are doing every Thursday at 9 p.m., wherein we talk about mountaineering, which is a topic not discussed much. You'll have people talking about a lot of other stuff, but then mountaineering, expeditions, treks, we hope it catches up soon and people get aware of it. So that's why we try to ignite that fire and bring out with new stuff for them to explore and learn new things in life. And we encourage a lot of questions from people whosoever is attending. Now, one basic thing, Asta, is yoga for everyone, or is it only for people who, the way you said, who are ill, or they want something is missing, or somebody who's a runner, does he need to do yoga, or somebody who's a wrestler, or somebody who's into bodybuilding? Or what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, it is my most fundamental belief, and that's really. I'll let you fix that, sir.
No, you can go ahead. That's why I said, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so it is my most fundamental belief that yoga is for every single human being on the planet, and that's the reason I'm trying to do what I'm doing. When we look at yoga as a separate tool or an exercise, like I play the sport, no, I do yoga instead or something, then the problem comes. When you look at yoga as a science which is going to help you do whatever you do in a better manner, right? When
Right.
you have control over what is going on, you're not flustered, you're not frazzled by everything that's going on around you. No matter what the situation is outside, your mind is unperturbed, right? It's equanimous, it's balanced. That is yoga. So if one can achieve that and just do a simple 1 hour practice every day, why not? So flexibility, these things, and curing diseases, they come as byproducts, like I said. But yeah, the essence of yoga lies in that feeling of, I think, being fearless, being humble, and these are traits that come in when you practice. And people who like practice, they know what I'm talking about. So there are too many reasons to do it, and everybody should do it. Everybody should try it.
Okay, so in meanwhile, there was a word you said, yoga mat. So on Everest Base Camp, everybody gets so tired. It's just that I am speaking and, it's saying that Moods and Crampons has got to be there with me. So, what I want to ask is, on the Everest Base Camp, my backpack is going to be very heavy as such. So do I need to carry a yoga mat or some other exercise stuff to be carried apart from, normal stuff to make it, more tiring or something like that?
No, we'll be providing you the yoga mats. That's not an issue. In fact, we're looking at, the right, because this is a pilot for us as well. So, we are looking at what is the right kind of mat, and that'll give us the right grip stability in that kind of a terrain and climate. So we'll ensure that you have something that, you don't need to like carry with you, and we will carry it for you, and we'll ensure that it works well at that temperature and terrain.
True. In
So
fact, a lot of people they had this doubt as well that on Everest Base Camp it's going to be all elevation, undulated grounds, and also how are we going to do yoga? How do we do that?
yeah, I mean, sir, one is obviously thanks to you. You for this particular 19-day trek, right? You've chosen a route that is a lot less commercial
Right.
and which has more planes. We'll have the right, like you've done the recce to see that we have enough areas where there's flat land and we're able to do the right kind of practice. And then it'll also help us because somehow this year there are not that many people who normally travel every year for EBC, and
Good point. Yeah.
it's also that it's also that what was I going to say? Um, it's also not going to be as crowded for that reason, actually, because of this less commercial route that we're taking. So, because of these two reasons, I think, yeah, the environment's going to be quite conducive to be able to practice. And I think we'll make sure of that.
Great. Yeah, I would again like to highlight the point you just mentioned, wherein this year the number of people who are registering for Everest or the base camp is much less from different countries because there are a lot of restrictions from US, UK on travel to Nepal, which is not there in our case. So people who are traveling from India would have kind of an easier route this time, unlike the kind of pictures we have been used to, long queues on Everest or the Everest base camp. So anybody who wants to do, who has EBC in the bucket list, this I think is a good time to plan a trek and make the most out of it. If you are, scared of crowd and all, for us, it's okay. I am okay with even if there are more number of people. I just love that terrain, and EBC is definitely irrespective of the number of people. But then, yeah, there are concerns, and we can surely address that. Now, another point is that a lot of people say, after doing this 19 days trek, will they be able to teach? Because you've just done a course, Acharya course or something. I'm sorry, I don't exactly know that yoga Acharya something. So tell us about that course. How was it, and what all do you learn so that people benefit from the same?
After this kind of a program, no, you're not going to be allowed to teach. The standard practice is that for anyone to be able to teach yoga, you do a 200-hour course in a yoga institute or a recognized yoga school, and that's how you become a teacher. So, hi, Rishi. Rishi is here. He's going with us, I think.
Right.
I think it's Rishi only. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, that's not good. Like this program is not going to help you to be a teacher, right? The course I did was in Shivananda, which was a advanced yoga training. So all these yoga schools have a basic and an advanced. Advanced is a 500-hour thing, and then you're certified to take things forward. So yeah, there's a lot that we learned. In fact, there were a lot of times I went deeper with a lot of my teachers to understand, where does high altitude and yoga, where do these two disciplines meet, and what can happen. So I'm very kicked to be able to share that on the program this time.
And generally at a high level, out of 19 days, how many days would we be doing yoga, and how many days we would not be doing yoga? Because there are a lot of people, they have this doubt, obviously.
Yeah, no, so it's like see, a lot depends on a lot of other factors, right? What is the group fitness? What is the weather? So many things are we are not looking at right now. But on a general level, there's going to be some amount of yoga every day. Some days is going to be proper sessions. Some days is going to be some quick stuff. Practice breathing will be integrated through your day. Whatever you're doing, you're going to be doing it with this idea of breath-based performance, which is whatever you do it with an understanding of your breath. So in some way, it's integrated through the course every day. Longer sessions will happen on some days, not every single day. So,
okay.
Yes.
On this point, again, I would like to highlight that, we are not following a traditional route that you first day reach here, second day there, and then you finish it off. Because frankly speaking, I know a few of my friends who have finished the complete EBC trek in 10 days. And, 10 days, they themselves have realized that, it was a short time, and they were kind enough and frank enough to admit that they took tablets like Dimox and all, and then they finished it. Which is something which I would never recommend, or I would not allow anyone to have or finish it in that kind of time. So that's why we are going with 19 days of a trek. Pankaj is referring that Shavasana. Yeah, Pankaj, sure Shavasana is going to be there. We'll see tomorrow morning at 5:30 how long Shavasana stands. But then, yeah, that's right. So that being said, we are following a route wherein we don't stress ourselves too much so that we are not able to do yoga before or after. The whole uh, process should be enjoyed, not just the trek, but yoga and the kind of bonding which people are going to be there, because we understand that uh, not everybody gets this much amount of leave all through the year. So there are a lot of people who would compress everything in these 19 days, or I mean, pure saal ka leave, and then they would come. So that will be key for us, that we structure it in a manner to get benefits from trek and yoga, and as a whole package, it makes a lot of value to us. And the few questions which are there, we'll just see. Will be taught some kind of basic yoga schedule we can do daily for a fitness even after the trek. Asta?
Absolutely. Like that's the point. Like I said, it's not about doing some quick stretches. Through the course, the way I've structured this program is when you go back, you'll have a sound understanding of three areas, right? What are the pranayamas you need on a daily basis, how to do them, and how to take care of breathing in general. What are the yoga asanas, Surya Namaskars, and stretching routines that you need to keep your body fit and healthy on treks, without treks, whatever, but as per the classical style. And third, we will be introducing some elements of meditation and just little bit of that, just to see what that is like. Sir is just like, Asta, I'm going to kill you.
Wow. No, no. Once you listen, it looks very interesting. I'm sure it is once we do it as well. So, because generally what we do on a trek is that you prepare your trek. Once you're doing, you do a good warm up, so that your body gets warmed up. You don't suffer from shoulder pains and all after carrying a backpack. And then you do a good recovery once you finish it off, so that your next day workout becomes much easier. So that with the proper structure, I'm sure is going to make a lot of sense. Now Gaurav Chaudhary, he's joining us for Patalsu, and he's saying, please join us on Patalsu trek in March. Yeah, Gaurav, why don't you join us for March, April, every time, because yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But then I hope, once the project gets successful, we are able to replicate it in a different manner. That comes to our, next obvious thing, which is, after EBC and yoga delivers what we are promising it to deliver, what is the next step?
You tell me, sir, what is the next step?
We'll take it as it comes.
We take it as it comes.
Obviously, no problem, because that's why we have not structured that day one we are going to do this exercise, day two we're going to do this exercise, because a lot of pre-planning doesn't help. It's that, how the situation changes, because at many a times you have issues like flight delays, which is very common in between Kathmandu, Lukla, and there are issues regarding the route and such kind of stuff. So it's important that you have a lot of flexibility in whatever plans are there, and that's where we are catered for a schedule which makes sure that you learn adequate amount of stuff and not get rigid that today is supposed to be only this. So in case we have less time in the morning, we'll suitably modify the plan. I mean, you will do it, because trek plan stays the same. We have to go. Just that how you modify it to squeeze in within the time, that's going to be important.
Yes, sir,
Right, Asta?
absolutely. Right. With any kind of, I think with any of these things, there are so many other factors that enter the picture. So we will have to stay flexible. It doesn't mean we don't have, a plan for every day, but yeah, we will be open to adapting and seeing where things go. It's also the first time we're doing it. So let's see, we're going to stay open to all kinds of possibilities and outcomes.
Yeah, that way I must again emphasize that the kind of response we are getting in the group, the WhatsApp group of people who are participating, has been tremendous. They've been really excited, and at times when I have not been very encouraging, I've felt, pumped up after listening to them, that, how they're preparing and all. And, Rishi and a lot of them have been, pushing us to, deliver what we should be doing the most. Diet. Okay, Gaurav, before Asta replies to, role of diet, I want to say that next week we are having a dietitian, Anu ma'am. She's going to be there, and she's going to tell about diet before going for a trek, during the trek, and after that. And as far as I know of her, she is not one of those who goes with fat diets, like you got to have some fruit from some other country and have only that for breakfast. So that's the best part. So must listen to that next Thursday 9 p.m. And before that, yoga and diet. What is the link and what do you say?
Yoga and diet. So, if we were to summarize all of the yoga philosophy in 5 points, one of those very important points are proper diet. The others are proper exercise, proper breathing, proper relaxation, and positive thinking. But the fifth point is proper diet. So it plays a huge role in how you feel with your practice. Generally, proper diet in yoga means anything that is conducive to help you keep your mind in control. Okay, and use less energy in all this digestion and all this stuff. So that's why we focus on simple. You eat fruits, you eat vegetables, you eat stuff that is light, healthy. You make sure all nutrients you're having. Don't have too much chili, don't have too much garlic, onion, because these things are stimulants. Coffee, tea, etc. are stimulants. Overeating is a big no-no in yoga, so you don't just. So these are few things that people keep in mind. But again, it's with the objective that you want your mind to be under your control, uh, right? And you want to remove any kind of too much stimulation. So if that is the objective, this is the diet. You can have other objectives, and then all kinds of diets suit you. So there's no rigidity in yoga with diet. It just tells you eat fresh,
Great.
eat healthy. Yeah.
Great. Fresh, I doubt we'll get a lot of fresh there because fresh is something which is very scarce. But then yes, whatever is there, we'll make sure that it is hygienic and whatever is available. There are a few questions which have come up. I'll just scroll up. Is there a specific diet plan during the trek as per yoga practices? I think already replied. No specific diet plan. It's more to do with individual and how the body behaves, because as they say, once you're going to Everest, not the base camp trek, you tend to lose a lot of weight. Close to 20% of your weight loss is there. But on Everest base camp trek, I doubt if you lose 20%, 10% is fine, not more than that. Right. Arun is asking, have you come up with a yoga plan for the entire trek, or is this something that will be decided dynamically? So, Asa, you can just speak about, that high level thing which you've planned for them.
Yeah, there is a high level plan. There is a plan that's in place. It's not going to be dynamic. Of course, we'll adapt if needed, but essentially, like the three things I told you about, uh, training of the lungs and breath-based performance is one. We'll focus on that in the first few days of the program, so that's something that continues through the 19 days. Um, Special routines for injury prevention, recovery, and repair are going to be done as and when the need is. Every alternate day you will have something of that sort. Correct stretching in morning and evening will be there, and something like which is more towards meditation and a little bit more yoga philosophy related stuff will happen dynamically. We'll see when the mood is right and when people are willing, and we have the right kind of environment for that. But the first two aspects are very well planned and structured in the 19 days. I hope that
Great.
answers the question.
Yeah. And also, it's a 19 days plan. I've not seen any Everest base camp trek spanning for 19 days, which means you'll have adequate time catered for while going from one place to the other. You don't have to hurry it up. And whatever we used to cover in, let's say, 2 days, we'll cover in, let's say, 3 or 4 days subsequently, because we have adequate time catered for this. And the spots also, we have made sure, if you have gone through the brochure, that the route which you are going while going towards the base camp is a different one while we are returning, so that you are exposed to different kind of villages which are there en route, and similarly while coming back you find different routes. So that's a lot of fun, and you get to interact with civilians, not civilians, I'm sorry, it's a lot of Nepalese over there, because the culture and all is different, and I'm sure people are going to love it. So we have done whatever we had to discuss. Now I'll request people, if they have questions, feel free to ask. I'll also just scroll up.
Yeah, I think there were some questions on top that we missed.
Yeah, you can check up. I'll also have a look. Gaurav had asked, unique concept to integrate yoga at high altitudes. Question is, what difference will it make performing yoga at high altitudes as compared to yoga at sea level? I think we have covered that.
Yeah, I think we kind of answered that.
And other things we have.
Yeah, Sadhaka has asked, will yoga help in acclimatizing during the trek? Sadhaka, I don't know if you're still here, but yes, like I said, the internal environment and the oxygen, these two pieces, yoga helps you with. And when you are able to train your body on those two levels, endocrine and respiratory system, when you're up there, you're able to acclimatize much better. Oxygen levels go down, you're able to be more efficient with the air around you. So that's how you were able to acclimatize a lot better. You don't get that uh, AMS and things like that. Ideally.
Right. So yeah, one thing I was just recollecting. A lot of people they say since we don't have questions. Okay, Gaurav, you have encountered any mystic aspects of yoga? Just curious to know. Not this guy Gaurav asks a lot of questions. I am private to it because every day answer 10 of his questions, which is nice. It makes us feel good that people are
I
taking
like
interest.
this. I like this, Gaurav. Okay. Yes. I mean, so we always say, right, yoga has three aspects: physical, mental, spiritual, right? And the spiritual aspect basically deals with prana or the energy flow in the body. And that makes you, when you have control over the breath and mind, you also slowly gain control over the energy, like they say in the books, over the prana in your body. And that makes you feel like great and in different ways. So so, so yes, I have actually. I've had some very beautiful experiences through my practice, and especially in this course that I just did, which is an advanced teacher training course at Shivananda, India, in Madurai. And we did advanced pranayamas 2 hours in the morning sometimes, and I cannot explain it in words how beautiful the feeling is. It it actually makes, no, I don't know if I should get into it. It's great. I'll tell you about it sometime. But yeah, it's great. It's like you do feel all kinds of things, physical, mental, and spiritual level, when you practice and when you practice consistently with discipline.
Great. So I was coming on to something like, a lot of people they have this inhibitions whether we can do Everest base camp trek because the moment Everest gets associated with the trek, they are scared, which is we can't blame them because it's quite obvious at times. So I want to say, all those people who feel that it's too difficult, just remember that it's not the Everest you're going to climb; it's just the base camp. So don't get so bogged down that how we're going to do the Everest base camp and such stuff. Have faith in your body, and yourself. Have faith in our company and us. If we are taking you, it's our responsibility at the end. So don't worry on that. And 19 days is hell lot of a time to acclimatize, to plan,
Yeah.
prepare. You're not cutting short on you're not compromising on your fitness or schedules that way. So if you have a decent amount of fitness, it should not be that you're suffering from any major illness or something. So if somebody is decently fit, we are always open to discussion. We can always guide you because there have been few instances we have refused people who have not. We have found that those people are not at all prepared for the Everest Base Camp trek. But generally, if you are interested, you have the commitment which is required. I think we can surely build it up, right?
Yeah, and I think yes, I saw like even with us, Raghav is coming with us, and like a couple of other people, right? They've not been on a trek before, right? And that's okay. Like they might have done small trails and here and there or in from around their city, but they're generally fit, and that's a great prerequisite to have. We have a month and a half of training that we're doing, and 19 days, like Sir said, is a lot. So yeah, it's not as daunting as it might seem to a lot of people because of the word Everest, and yeah, that's what I wanted to say as well.
Okay, I think that's all from my side. In case any more questions come up, then it's fine. Ask anything which you want to add before I go on to the closing part of it.
I think I just want to add one thing, like the seed of where this came from or comes from my mind. Like so, I've always felt that if there are two things that make me feel really free, and when I say free, I mean when you finish a yoga practice and you come out of your mat, there's a certain level of like I've used these words before, but you feel fearless, you feel humble, you feel like there's a certain level of calmness that you feel in the mind also. And people who practice, they know what I'm talking about. And that same exact feeling is replicated when you're on that 15,000, 18,000 feet and you're looking at, the world and the mountains, and you feel small, you still feel humble, you still feel fearless, like you can achieve anything in the world. So I think
Right.
it's beautiful how these two things are so similar. One is a journey where you're going all across and going everywhere in the world, and one is a journey where you're going inside, but they make you feel something very similar. And I think that's the reason bringing them together is very, very beautiful. And like I'm very fortunate that I had like someone like you who said, you tell us, like you were just so trusting and saying that we'll make it happen. And, like you were ready to take the risk. And that's why I'm really like grateful to you and the company as well for just giving me the chance to design and help with something like this. And just support me in, whatever came through. There were all kinds of challenges we also had. And yeah, I just want to thank you for just being so trusting always.
No, no, thanks, Asta. Coming on to the point, not everybody has got the guts to try something like this, and Boots and Crampons, always does something which, that's why we all came together, the company, so that we can try something which is different. Otherwise, there are, a lot of routine tricks, easier tricks, which keep people in the safe zone, and which is not, and comfort zone, which is something which we thought we could challenge with this. And I'm sure with you being there, we have great times ahead during the trek and EBC. And thank you so much, everyone. And thanks, Asta, for being here. Next Thursday, we're going to have again a very interesting topic on, what kind of diet specific you should be keeping for the trek. We have Pemba 8848 here. Pemba, hi, namaste. Pemba is from Nepal, so I'm sure he must be staying somewhere on that EBC route only. I hope things materialize well. Okay, so next time we meet again next Thursday on the Ascent series, we have Anu ma'am discussing about the diet. So all your questions on what kind of diet you should have before going for a trek, during the trek, or any of your fitness schedules will be clarified then. Right? Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thanks, Asta.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone else also who's watching. Hi, Zubin.
Okay.
You're still here. Okay, cool. Bye. See you.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Good night.